Hi, I'm Carol O'Mara, horticulture entomologist with Colorado State University Extension here in Boulder County. As we get further into March, everybody's sap starts to rise and we want to start sowing those seeds. We want to start them out in the garden, but if we act now and put seeds into a nice starting mix, we can have a jump start to the season for when we're planting our seedlings out. But before we go out and buy a lot of expensive equipment, there are things right around our household that we can use to start seeds without adding to the landfill or breaking our budget. Today we're going to look at a couple of very commonly found containers. The first one is these strawberry clamshell containers, or blueberries can come in some, or other types of small fruits. They're on sale now at the grocery stores and you can buy a lot of fruit in these packages, but these things, they make great seed starting containers. Another thing that's perfect for starting seeds are egg cartons. People ask me about this all the time, and it is true. They make fantastic seed starting trays. Look at this. They have just individual little cells already made out for you. And if you're using the cardboard or the pressed paper types, these things can be planted straight into the soil and you don't have a lot of mess trying to move plants around. Paper towels are another essential ingredient in starting seeds indoors when you're using containers like this. And then finally, just plastic bread bags. We'll talk about these in a minute. But first, let's take a look at how you can start seeds using just a few of these common kitchen containers. We have our seed starting mix here, and it came out of the bag dry. What we want to make sure is we're using a soilless seed starting mix, one that isn't potting soil, but rather it's something that's designed specifically for getting our seedlings off to a good start. This is a little coarse, but you can see here it has a lot of peat moss, it has perlite in it, and it's really dry right now, which is not a good thing to put a tender seed into. So we put that on a tray or in a bowl, and we add just a little bit of water. The water is going to be absorbed by the seed starting mix before we put it into the containers and put our seeds into it. In this way, we don't have the seed starting mix taking water away from the seedlings in order to hydrate and plump up. So we're just going to mix that together. It's a little bit of a messy process, so this is perfect to do with kids when they like to get their hands muddy when it's, winter time. Just go ahead and mix this up. You want the mix to be about the consistency of a damp sponge, but one that is not waterlogged. So go careful on the water. Mix it up until it's not powdery and you don't get that dust in your nose, and you're ready to go. Let's take a look at how we plant into the clamshell containers. Now these have a wide base, but because they have these holes all along the bottom, there's perfect drainage, and on the lids they have holes for air circulation. This is ideal for starting seeds. The deeper ones are best because you can give this a nice inch of soil for the roots to expand into, while still have enough space at the top for the seedling to expand. However, there are two tricks to using these containers, and the first one is you don't want the soil flowing out of these holes in the bottom, and the second is once you've got the seedlings or the seeds in here, you want to close it and keep it nice and moist before the seedlings germinate. How do you do that? How do you keep it watered while not opening the lid? The secret is in the paper towels. What we're going to do is just cut a paper towel to fit right into this container. The paper towel itself is going to act like a wick for the water in the tray where we're setting this. We only want this to be one layer thick, so when we're trying to cut it, see if you can get it as close to the size for the bottom of this container as possible. You can see here, putting it in and tucking it right down against these holes. And then you take your soil and give your seedlings about an inch, tucking it down against the paper towel. You don't want to press too hard. You want to keep this seed starting mix nice and fluffy. But you want to make sure the paper towel touches all these holes, and then we're going to sew right into it. So we've got this ready to go. When sowing into these containers, keep in mind that you want seedlings that will come up and not be too large right away, because we are going to be closing the lid. Today what I'm going to be working with is a few pepper plants. The seeds and seedlings generally come up nice and small, and you can see the size of the seeds here are perfect for something that's just a couple of inches long. So we're going to take the tip of our scissor here, or you can use any type of a small stick, or you can use a toothpick, and we're going to make little depressions in the soil, about 3 across, and we're going to put 1 seed per depression. If you get more than 1 seed in there, you can just pull it out and move it around. No worries. We got too many in that one, so we're going to move 1 over here. And we're going to gently cover it by raking the soil across so that the seed is not planted too deep. When you're working with a seed, any type of a seed, a general rule of thumb, if you don't know how deep to plant it, is it's approximately 4 times the height of the seed deep. With this, we need just a little extra soil in order to give these seeds a nice blanket. So we're just going to take that, sprinkle it on. Now remember, the seed starting mix is already damp. If you want to, you can sprinkle just a little bit more water, but we're going to hold off on that until we get it into the tray itself. Taking another watertight tray, what we'll do is we'll set this down into it. Give these seedlings a little bit of a drink, not too much, just a little sprinkling to try and get that paper towel wet down below it. And then we're going to shut the lid. Once you've shut the lid, this creates a nice humidity tent, something that keeps moisture in, but it has a little bit of air circulation to it. Now these paper towels have been moistened down below, and once you set it in a watertight tray, how you water it is simple. You simply pour the water at the base into the tray, making sure that your seedling tray is setting right into the water. The paper towel will wick that water up and pull it up into the seed starting mix to keep this nice and humid for these tiny little seeds. Put this in a nice warm location, and you'll see seeds coming up in about 7 to 10 days. We have that nice air circulation, but once all the seedlings have popped up, you do want to open the lid just a little bit to make sure that it's going to get enough air circulation. So that's how you use these clamshell containers. Once the seedlings have gotten about 2 sets of true leaves on them, you're going to prick them out. You're going to take a nice little fork and you're going to tease them out of the soil and move them into a larger pot. This is just a little tray to get them started. Another great container are these egg cartons. As we talked about before, they have some nice individual cells that we can go ahead and put our soil into. Again, you want to prepare your soil so that it's nice and moist before you put them into the egg carton. And we're just going to fill each cell with a little bit of soil. This is pretty quick and easy to do. For sowing into something like this, these compressed paper cells break down really quickly, especially when they're being kept moist for the seeds and the seedlings. And as you can see, there's not a lot of space for roots to expand. So the trick for these is to sow something into this that you're going to plant out pretty soon. In March, there are not a lot of things that you can start indoors that you're going to put out into the garden quite so quickly, but you could start peas in here, you could start some lettuces, or perhaps some spinaches. But a better thing to do is to go ahead and wait until about 2.5 weeks before the last frost date and get your warm season vegetables started in it, especially things like cucumbers, squash, melons, those things that like to get a nice head start indoors, but then don't like a lot of root disturbance when they get planted. So if we were in the end of April and I wanted to start sowing seeds into this, these are pretty big seeds, the squash that I'm going to be putting into here. But as you can see, I've filled the container. I'm taking my squash seeds, as soon as I can get into the packet. squash seeds are fairly large, so I only need 1 seed per container. And I'll gently press these down into the damp soil. Now, because this is a summer squash, it's a yellow crookneck, I don't need too many, so I'll do 4 cells of that. And then I might sow something else and label it. I have some watermelon that also will germinate in roughly the same amount of time. So I'll take the watermelon and put those seeds in. And I'll start these guys over here so I can tell them apart. Add a little bit of soil. Make sure these are covered over. Now, with the egg carton, you still need to to put them in a container that will give a humidity tent, and that's where these bread bags come in. I can cut off the lid to this egg carton. And take a bread bag to slide this tray into in order to provide some humidity for these seeds and keep them nice and hydrated. When you're using common household plastics in order to provide a humidity tent for these, here's something to keep in mind. Not all plastics are alike. Bread bags, there is a gas exchange. There is a little bit of breathing, if you will, by the plastic. And that allows these seedlings or these seeds to have humidity without having dead air. In other words, using bread bags will provide a much better humidity tent than other plastics that you might have. Saran wraps, or those cling wraps that you can use, are a lot more airtight. They're not the best thing to choose when trying to start your seedlings because there's really no gas exchange. For the seedlings, go ahead and use these little bread bags, hamburger bun bags, or whatever. You don't have to tie it too tight. If you wanted to, you could add just a little bit more water and you set it in your tray. Again, most of these vegetables that you can set in a warm location, and light is not the big deal until after they've poked their noses up out of the soil. Once that happens, break open these containers so they get a little air circulation and put them under your grow lights. You can use standard grow lights that you're buying at the store, or you can use just one cool blue fluorescent and one warm fluorescent bulb in a standard shop light setup, and that'll give the spectrum of light these seedlings need. I'm Carol O'Meara, and I'm helping you garden.